So we're going over something that was in the news today. Um, Hear me out. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit on Wednesday rejected the Trump administration's effort to lift U.S. District Judge James Boasberg's block on deportations under the Alien Enemies Act. The appeals court heard arguments Monday over the Trump administration's use of the Alien Enemies Act last week to deport more than 200 alleged members of a Venezuelan gang to El Salvador, another country, with no due process. So let's see what the Enemies Act is about. The Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Let's go over this real quickly for those of you that are confused. The law lets the president skip the usual immigration court process to detain and deport anyone age 14 and older who is from or the citizen of a hostile nation or government. This can happen only if the United States has declared war against the hostile nation, or crucially, if the president feels there is any invasion or predatory incursion threatened or attempted against the United States. And this act is based under the administration of President John Adams, who at the time was dealing with the conflict with the country of France, not a gang, a whole nation, a whole sovereign nation. And that's why it's not passing the test or the muster. A judge who is a conservative, by the way, who was appointed by George Bush. He's not a liberal. He was not appointed by Obama, like the White House said. Lies. He found that the case had no merit. Now, they're not against deporting people. And that's what people are pushing Trumpers or the MAGA crowd to believe. They were not saying, hey, don't deport criminals. No, they were saying, don't deport people without due process. And we can already see the consequences of that. We have reports already, verifiable reports of people that reached out to that legal organization that many of you might know about. Is the American Civil Liberties Union. It's a legal organization that helps people in cases like this, where vulnerable people are hurt. And they found that people that were deported without due process and investigation, without court hearings to hear anything about why they're being deported, turned out to be not gang members. They were from Venezuela, yes, but one of them turned out to be a tattoo artist. And he was tattooed all over. He was a tattoo artist, Venezuelan guy, but he was not a gang member. Another one was a soccer player, a kind of a popular soccer player who played even in a major league in Venezuela years ago. In other cases similar to that. I mean, it went so botched, like everything else that's happening in the Trump White House. There were 8 women who were deported with those people, those men, alleged criminals, all of them. And they sent them to El Salvador, and because they only detained men in those prisons, they had to send the women back to the U.S. You see how botched that was? And now a judge is telling them, you cannot do that. We're not at war with another country. This gang may be from Venezuela, but they're not associated with the government. They're not trying to invade the USA. Venezuela which is not an ally of the U.S., of course, and we know the story behind Maduro and Hugo Chavez and all that, and the socialism and the corrupt government there. But this gang has nothing to do with them. It's like trying to say that the gangs in L.A. Have something to do with the government, and they go to another country, and then they try to use some international law to deport them. What they should have done, Kristi Noem, the head of the Homeland Security, Immigration, USCIS, should have said, hey, we cannot do that. We got to do due process. Let's deport all these people, all these undocumented immigrants, but we have to see who's really a gang member to send them to El Salvador gang prisons. And people don't seem to kind of like understand that. It's like they're not against deporting criminals. They're against deporting people who may be innocent, who are being judged as gang members when they don't have maybe a few minutes in a hearing to say, hey, I'm a tattoo artist, I'm a soccer player who has several tattoos on me, but no, they were like, no, you're going. And that seems very inhumane and cruel to put them out there when they're not gang members. And then again, we heard MAGA extreme Steve Bannon, who made a comment in his show, I forget the name of his show, is War Room, I think, where he said, oh, too bad if some good people go along with those criminals, so too bad if a few of those are innocent and they go with those criminals. That's just the way it happens. That's the way it goes. What kind of thinking is that? I mean, imagine if that was a friend of yours or a neighbor or a family member, if you happen to be Latino, connected by marriage or blood. I mean, it seems very uncaring, cruel to do that. And again, they're not arguing against deporting people. And I'm repeating this again and again. We are not against deporting criminal undocumented aliens who may also gang members. We're against deporting people who are not gang members, who are being judged that way because of the use of this law illegally. And not only that, this law that's one portion of it, about getting innocent people hurt and deported to a foreign country that they know nothing about. Number two, the enemies, what is the name of the law again? I forget it. The Alien Enemies Act of 1798. It doesn't apply. So they're pushing something that doesn't apply. And all these Trumpers are saying, oh, that's a leftist radical judge who wants invaders and illegal criminals in our country. What's wrong with some of those people? Read, investigate, so you know what's going on. Don't just trust Fox News or Newsmax or talk show hosts on the right-wing media pushing lies. Please go to a source. Go to the what do you call it? The U.S. Department of State. Or go also to many other sources that are reliable, that you can find out the info. Look at history. So please, people, it's something that people have to know that is not acceptable. And that's all I have to say. Oh, it looks like my lights went out. Let's see. All right. Yeah, I should have used the other car. Sorry. But I hope it makes the case, guys, because please use common sense before you start attacking a judge. Now the appeals court supported the judge, and now it's probably going to the Supreme Court. And what are you going to say if the Supreme Court says, no, you're wrong? Trump cannot do that. Are you going to go against the Supreme Court? Which I'm pretty certain that's going to be the case. I'm almost sure, even though that Supreme Court is Trumpy. Anyway, that's all I have. Hasta la vista, baby.